The town hall of the highest ranks of the Imperial Knights. The vice captain can't believe it. But yes, he is indeed expected in the office of the captain of the first squad. And why did that creepy Sir Damfiel call for him in the first place? Well, in any case, the knight may be free to go. The one is grateful to have been given the assignment. With that, the vice captain walked out and the door to the office slammed shut. But the servant remained meekly standing in place with blood-colored eyes. After walking a few corridors, the young man found himself at his destination, knocking gently on the door of the senior officer. He wished nothing had happened. Phil invited the man in, and let Sir Paul Rance come closer. The captain of the first squad had heard that the mage Helena was under the influence of dark magic when she attacked the prince. After that, the guards were reinforced and no such incidents happened. That's right, they had beefed up the guards and increased the personal guards of the imperial family. But they could have done it sooner. After all, those people are the future of their country. Sir Damfiel has already spoken to Captain Oliver, but with Paul he discusses it for the first time. The young man has been in his position for a very long time, so the knight worries whether he holds a grudge against him. But no way, he is completely satisfied with his position, and the captain of the first squad is glad to hear it. They say that in terms of skills Paul Rance is the best after Captain Oliver. That's amazing. Such abilities should be noted by the ruler, the crown prince, and Captain Oliver himself. The young man even blushed with embarrassment. He still had a lot to learn. In response, the senior officer asked the vice captain not to be modest, for he had achieved such a rank through his own labor. When Captain Oliver proposed to Sir Damfiel that Paul Rance, a commoner and orphan, be made vice-captain of the 2nd Knight's troop, the man thought he had lost his mind. Indeed, how could such an important task as guarding the imperial family be entrusted to a man from the street? Appointing an ordinary peasant to such a high position was completely ridiculous. After saying that, Paul literally fell into a stupor, but that would end today. Before Sir Damfiel could finish his speech, Evantus appeared behind him. Then the vice-captain tried to draw his sword, but his body wouldn't listen. The black magic was binding him tighter and tighter. Tonight, Paul Rance would be sacrificed. And all in the name of a new empire. At the same time on the training ground, and the crown prince is holding up pretty well, even has the ability to attack back. Oliver only has to give advice, control his position and speed of attack. The young man asked the captain to stop, but did not take into account the main thing. In battle, the opponent will not give indulgence, and the sword of His Highness flew a few meters away. Their training is over for today. Why is the crown prince so bad at swordsmanship? But the captain immediately assured him otherwise. The young man is more talented than any ordinary man. He's even faster than Ian, the tower master, who, by the way, was also Oliver's apprentice for 5 years. Patch is a great magician, it's true, but he's not much of a knight. Only it's a secret, and I think His Highness is pleased with the news. Ian isn't perfect at everything, so the crown prince might be better at something too. Then he would train even harder until he was better than Sir Oliver. But suddenly the young man's attention was distracted by a figure off to the side. The vice-captain was standing under a tree, as still as a statue. Could Oliver know something about this? Paul had not spoken to His Highness much lately, and was walking about as if he were in the water. And the captain, unfortunately, noticed it too, but after contacting him personally, he received a reply that everything was fine. The heir here thinks that maybe he should ask again. All the more reason not to be shy or harsh. That's Oliver's job as a leader. And maybe then the bad thoughts will leave His Highness' head. I just wish all was well with Vice-Captain Paul. His Majesty's Imperial Palace, a hall decorated in the latest fashion of the time. The court servants are busily preparing to receive their guests, and the captain reminds the crown prince that the reception is about to begin. Of course he is aware of that, he replied, greeting Oliver in fine attire with a robe around his shoulders. The young man is always so excited at such events, for they must make a good reputation for themselves through their own efforts. It's a pity John won't be with them, he's so busy. But the prince is in charge today, so he shouldn't worry. It's the aristocrats who should be worried at the sight of him. And the captain's warm words made the young man smile. It's true, it's just the way it is. Besides, with His Highness the Sword Lord, his friend and reliable support. But it seemed like suddenly someone called out to him from outside. It was Princess Haley. She too had come to the reception, so also in an incredibly enchanting dress. This outfit is really special, and all for the crown prince's birthday. And the one is a bit sorry that Ian cannot come, because he could have seen the girl in such a beautiful outfit. And what's her brother's point? And why is he telling everyone about the lady asking about Mr. Pagey? Does he have any idea how embarrassed she is? Anyway, Princess Haley wishes her brother a happy birthday. The girl is really proud of herself for trying so hard here. And let him not worry if anyone speaks ill of him. the lady will personally destroy that person. The prince, not holding back sincere emotions, thanks his little sister. But now it's honestly time for them to go. After all, the guests shouldn't have to wait long. Please welcome Crown Prince Hayden Greenriver and Princess Haley Greenriver. The attendees kindly lowered their heads down, all because the couple in front of them had already entered. The conductor immediately waved his wand and classical music played. Everyone wishes your highness happy birthday. They are very happy to meet you. And the prince, in turn, graciously thanked the guests, hoping that the reception would be a success. And then the typical small talk of such events began. Captain Oliver could only watch Hayden's passionate conversation. Suddenly the master of ceremonies was distracted by a voice from outside. Turning around, the servant's face was instantly covered in sweat. Why isn't he announcing yet? His Majesty the Emperor has arrived. An excited roar rumbled through the hall. It seemed that the prince himself had not expected to see his father today. But how could he not show up? It's his son's birthday party. It is the duty of every ruler to congratulate his child. The emperor is very proud of Hayden Greenriver. And he does not just say that, he says it from the bottom of his heart. After walking to the wide table, the emperor begins his speech. Many have gathered here today to congratulate his son. After a heavy rain, the earth always becomes stronger. So he hopes that after all the hardships, a dawn awaits their empire. As a father, he is very pleased to watch his child grow up. He hopes that everyone present will be able to appreciate the crown prince's achievements. When he was about 5 years old, he ran after his majesty during a walk in the garden. And the man asked why he was doing that, to which he received the answer that Hayden would go wherever his father told him to go. Even though they were just words, the emperor felt he could provide his son with a reliable support, and show him the dignified path that the prince would take. It had been so long ago, but Hayden patiently and persistently followed him. The father is grateful for his son's trust. He truly believes he can make it all the way. His Majesty asks them to raise their glasses. Let them drink to their empire and the prince's happiness, to the stable future of his people. And lastly, he once again wishes his son a happy birthday. Hayden could not find words at this touching moment, only to say words of gratitude to his father, which were drowned out by the emperor's bloody cough. And the glass with the drink slowly fell to the floor. The prince seemed dumbfounded by what he saw. What had just happened now? And the guests, absolutely everyone present, no one understood what was happening. And poor Haley, she is still so young to see all this. The first person who had to and who did was Captain Oliver. He immediately ran to his emperor's aid. Can we call it a coincidence? But the sky that evening was covered with storm clouds. The crown prince sat alone in his chambers, detached, contemplating what was about to happen. Could it be his fault? But there's a sudden knock at the door. Your Highness, Captain Oliver Raywood of the 2nd Imperial Knights asks for an audience. As soon as Hayden heard the familiar name, he jumped up from the couch and begged to be called sooner. Such excitement, their meeting hadn't happened in a long time. How's it going? What's wrong with him? How was his father feeling? And in truth, they had managed to avoid lethality, but the emperor was still in critical condition. All the doctors and alchemists of the palace are trying very hard to... But the prince interrupted. Did they find the person who tried to kill his majesty? Oliver looked worriedly into Hayden's eyes and immediately said, they caught the culprit in the act, and he confessed to what he had done at once. It was the first time in all his years that the prince had been struck with such a nether rage. Let him answer at once. But this time, the captain paused. Apparently gathering his words, His Highness's hands shook right on the knight's body. But why did he remain silent for so long? A conflict broke out in the meeting room. How could the vice-captain of the 2nd squad of knights do such a thing? After all, he had been one of the captains and the crown prince's closest confidants for several years. How could His Majesty and Sir Oliver Raywood not recognize such a dangerous criminal? The other man, on the other hand, is convinced he didn't act alone. We need to find everyone involved. Paul Rance is known to have bitten off his tongue during questioning. Now he won't tell them anything. Wasn't the young man an orphan from the northern regions? That's very close to the Cowwood Empire. We must remember that 6 years ago, there was an explosion on the palace grounds. It turned out that the Ivory Tower Mage, the Castle Maid, and the Palace Secretary were all spies. Paul Rance may have been able to earn the title at such a young age, but you can't forget his controversial background. And to deny that he too could have been a Cowwood spy. The man in the brown suit tried to interject, but was immediately overruled. Now it's about Paul Rance trying to poison His Majesty. And he says nothing about his accomplices or his motives. They should have taken a closer look at the young man's background. They should immediately remove him from his position as the captain of the 2nd Imperial Squadron and then execute him for attempting to assassinate His Majesty. Most of the people present were in agreement with this opinion. It was up to the new master of the tower to find the answers. After the meeting was over, Mr. Ian went for a walk outside the palace. But then a voice responded. It seemed to be just what Paige had been waiting for. Captain Oliver was hiding behind a thick robe over his suit. He wondered Poil Rents how he was doing. The mage replied that everyone mistook him for a coward spy, and the knight could not contain his emotions and raised his voice. There's no way such a thing can happen. This is nonsense of some kind. There is no spy here, which the Tower Master agreed with. The vice-captain was willing to lay down his life for the crown prince. He was excellent at his job, despite his background, and he was also an excellent and loyal knight. That's the kind of Paul Rance Ian knows. But the verdict is in, and even Mr. Page can't exonerate him for what happened. The former vice-captain continues to keep silent, so they do not know why he did it and who was his accomplice. The Tower Master really wants to know why it happened, but he also wondered how His Highness was doing. Oliver replied that the prince had locked himself in his room, not eating or drinking. He probably blames himself for what happened. Understandably, this is generally a standard human reaction. Oliver also thinks that the Archimage is already aware that all the knights of the second detachment are forbidden to leave the capital, and soon they will be interrogated. As captain of the squad, the man will take no liberties. It's very hard for him to say this, but the only person Oliver can ask for help in this situation is Mr. Ian. Please let him reveal the truth. However, the Tower Master did not recognize the lie in the vice-captain's words. Just as there's no sign of outside influence, Paul Rance is going to jail tonight. That's where Paige will visit him, and then she'll go to Sir Oliver's house. The captain needed no further words, but let everything happen as planned. Toward evening, the Empire was in the midst of a downpour. The prison, which was not far from the capital, was no exception. What a lulling effect the sound of drops hitting the ground has on people. And it doesn't even have to use magic. The master of the tower arrived on the spot. The height of the iron bars caused genuine shock. But for a 6th class mage, even that was no barrier. Quietly opening the door, Ian stepped inside, drawing the vice-captain's attention to himself. A thoroughly tormented Paul Rance could only open one eye, that one recognizing who was now in front of him. But the young man only continued to stare down in silence. The Tower Master would never have believed he would dare attack His Majesty. The vice-captain knows he is not a spy. He has sworn to defend His Highness to the end, so it is not clear to Mr. Ian why Paul Lorenz would do such a thing. The Archmage will now visit the young man's memories. He asks that he be allowed to do so. An invitation to Sir Damphil's study, strange speeches, contrary to regulations, and then an unexpected visitor, seemingly out of nowhere. And finally, the dark enchantment, the face of the captain of the first squad, the last thing Paul remembers. He wasn't moving of his own accord, so someone had cast black magic on him. But suddenly Ian heard a familiar voice. I was too naive. I should have been careful because the worst enemies are the closest. The vice-captain. The Archmage sees him as if he were real. Oil waited for him to come and held on for the sake of meeting the Tower Master. Let him wait a little, almost now he will remove the enchantment. But the young man's hand stopped him. He wants to know how His Majesty feels now, and he will help him now. Thanks to the vice-captain's memories, Ian will be able to prove his innocence. If they find the instigator, Paul will be exonerated. But no, that's impossible. The young man said through gritted teeth. Even if they did, the vice-captain would not be innocent. After all, it was he who poisoned the ruler's wine, and Paige won't stop giving up. If he does, Paul Rance will be remembered as a potential assassin of the Emperor. But to be honest, he doesn't care. He had sworn to protect the imperial family, so simply forgetting about what had happened was not an option for him. If the perpetrator goes against His Majesty, then he will also go against the Crown Prince. And the situation with the vice-captain is just the beginning. And, unfortunately, hardly the end. Paul no longer wants to be a danger to Coronia. But the Tower Master can tell His Highness and Captain Oliver. And what? His apology and gratitude? It's the last thing a young man can do to protect His Highness. He begs, he pleads, let Mr. Ian protect the prince. And with those words, the vice-captain pushed the Archmage away, seemingly as much as he hoped to learn something more. Hayden could definitely bring light to this empire. That was the last thing Paul Rance said. Waking up, Paige clutched his chest and screamed. It seemed he had never felt so shitty in his soul before. The great undoing. The first thing the Tower Master did. It was all done in the hope that it would work. But how wrong was he? Vice-captain, hold on a little bit. He's going to destroy those spells right now. Let him wait, he doesn't have to suffer anymore. But it was only after a while that Ian realized. His efforts were utterly useless and pointless. For Paul Rance's wounded body was no longer moving. No words could help it. And Paige bowed his head silently before his friend, comrade in arms, and just a good man. The rain was mourning the soul of the deceased with the world, and it was a deep, dark night outside the window. but only Oliver Raywood was awake. The captain is thinking through all possible variants of events in his head and waiting, as suddenly some noise made the man distracted and grabbed his sword. Ah, thank goodness, it seems to be Ian arriving. Opening the doors, Sir Oliver is greeted by the Archmage. But the man's dejected look makes the man tense. Was the Tower Master able to meet with the Vice Captain? How is he? Maybe he found out something, about Sir Paul Rance? That's exactly what happened. Sir Paul Rance died today in his prison cell. Oliver was stumped when he heard the news. How could this have happened? Unable to bear the blow, the captain drew back, leaned one hand on the table, and stood there in silence for a few more minutes. They had first met in the north, at the orphanage run by the Raywood family. Paul had always been the good kid who looked out for the others. Oliver's father immediately recognized his talent for fencing. From then on they practiced together. Rance was the captain's best friend, who constantly supported him and stepped forward with confidence. He didn't deserve to die like this. He was able to see Paul's memories before he died. Oliver immediately rolled his head and looked at the Archmage. Did he recognize something? Yes. A few days ago the young man was found by the captain of the first night squad, Sir Damfield. Someone along with him had used black magic on the vice captain. Was it still there? Oliver had many new questions. And who was with them? Unfortunately, the Tower Master couldn't say that. It was a man with long hair and a pale face. Even in his past life, Ian had never met him. In any case, Sir Damfield was definitely connected with the case, as was a certain high-class magician. And when the captain asked how high, Paige was able to answer that the purification magic used on the Rensi field hadn't worked at all, which meant that the mage was above Ian's level. The Tower Master has a suggestion of who that person might be, but he's not sure. Besides, it's unknown if anyone else is helping them. He needs to do a more detailed investigation. Oliver is horrified by this story. How dangerous was that man if even Ian's magic was weaker? If the Tower Master fell under its influence, the Empire would be finished. But here Mr. Page was unperturbed, and then pulled a fine piece of jewelry from his breast pocket. It was the necklace the captain had given him 6 years ago after training. Yes, according to Oliver, it belonged to the Empress and contains magic that clears the head. But apparently it's not that simple. This necklace contains a very expensive gemstone, the Eye of the Dragon. It can protect against the effects of dark magic beyond the 8th grade. Now the captain realized how amazing it was. If Ian keeps it with him, then black magic? But suddenly the Tower Master turned his head, which even embarrassed the cautious Oliver a little. Not many people know about such ancient magic. Now it is only he and the man, but for others it is a common trinket. So let the captain promise not to tell anyone what Ian is about to tell him. The knight agreed without a second's hesitation, and their dialogue dragged on for another long time, where Sir Oliver mostly listened attentively. And one thing Mr. Page said to him managed to penetrate deep into the captain's subconsciousness. The rain continued to pour down and didn't seem to be letting up, and the clouds covered the palace of the 5th Crown Prince. Paul Rance had died in prison. That was the first thing the Dom file that came in said, and Ragnar, as befitted his character, was indifferent to it. The captain had been told that a rat had been in the dead man's cell, and most likely he had learned that black magic had been cast on Paul. The Crown Prince also agreed with this. Still, Ian Page doesn't know about the Draconian yet. He can only suspect and try not to be influenced by black magic. Let Havert with his 5th grade could not influence Ian, who has a 6th. But Mr. Evantus is a higher level mage. By human standards, he's now at 8th grade. Of course, his powers aren't restored yet, but even so, he's stronger than Ian. And I'm sure Page has already realized that there's someone stronger than him. Isn't the young man afraid that he'll run away with his tail between his legs? Ragnar smiled as he picked up his mug of tea. The Tower Master was not such a man, and his path was too difficult to retreat. The Crown Prince doesn't know what the man is really thinking at all. Even 6 years ago, when he came to the palace, Ian sided with the Crown Prince. But he also said that he did not serve him. Ragnar feels that he is hiding a lot, and that he knows much more about him than the young man can imagine. It feels as if they have known each other for a long time. Well, it doesn't matter, for now it's just worth watching. Finally the unfortunate night came to an end. It felt as if it had lasted for ages. Ian wants the letter sent to Pyrick in the east as soon as possible. And what about the letter to Lord Morrigan? According to the report, it will arrive soon. The butler has sent a messenger who can be trusted. Well, that's good enough for the Tower Master. Here, let the servant take it. It's a pass issued in the name of a member of the Merchant Guild. He can disguise himself as a merchant and leave the capital. And he hopes the courtier knows what he's talking about. When he packs his things, he will gather all the maids and his mother at sunset and go to Morrigan Manor in the north. Most likely, the Lord has already received a letter from the Tower Master and will be happy to receive guests. Suddenly, a woman ran into the office and looked at Ian with a frightened face. The woman was none other than his mother. She wondered what was going on. Why are they leaving so suddenly? But unfortunately, the Archmage couldn't answer that. It's hard to explain, but the capital is in danger now. Paige had already sent a letter to the Morrigan province. The Lord would help them, and the woman still stood her ground. If her son stayed, so would she. But Ian said not to worry about him. He was an adult after all. He was a mage, and he could really defend himself. But he's only 18, and he's her only son. What are we talking about? Why is Paige always doing weird stuff? The girl can no longer just watch when he puts himself in danger. But Ian loudly interrupted his mother's words. Ian's rough voice even made her shudder. He asks, please let her trust him. If something goes wrong, she might get hurt. And after saying that, the mother looked silently at her son, who managed to cheer her up by taking her hands. The Tower Master relies heavily on Mr. Lidio. If even Ian asks him to tell him where his mother is, he doesn't have to answer. When the time comes, Paige will send a letter to Lord Morrigan himself. But suddenly Douglas stepped in with a wish to stay. He doesn't know what's going on, but he feels he should definitely be of use. The Archmage is certainly pleased to hear that, but the matter is more dangerous than it seems. He'd better go. Also, Ian doesn't want Douglas falling into the wrong hands. The Archmage stepped to the center of the hall in front of his desk. When everyone has left the manor, he will erase some of his memory to forget where he sent everyone present. It would be up to them to remember what he had asked them to do and where he had sent them. No one resisted, agreeing with the Tower Master. But the hardest of all, of course, was his mother. But that was the way of things. Ian stood alone in the middle of the hall, pondering his next steps. Opening a small box, light poured from it. All that was left was this dragon eye necklace. And also at this point, the Tower Master reached into his pocket for a beautiful-looking potion vial. The Crown Prince spends all his time in the palace. According to his personal maids, he is not feeling well. His Majesty has received proper treatment and is now in a stable condition, but he is still unconscious. Even if he wakes up, he would have to deal with the many effects of the poisoning. Such an outcome did not suit the 5th Crown Prince much. If the best one was missing, it could ruin their plan. But Sir Damfiel has enlisted the help of one of the alchemists. They should take action in this situation. Many aristocrats have doubts about Prince Hayden. They believe that in critical situations like this, he won't be able to take the reins of power with dignity. And the second troop of knights is being interrogated. Sir Oliver Raywood is personally supervising. Evantus decided to enter abruptly. A smile never faltered on his face for a second. Things are generally going smoothly. They can just wait until the throne passes to Ragnar. But the Crown Prince is only embarrassed that Page is doing nothing. He would hardly wait. But suddenly a servant came with news. Sir Damfield told him not to be disturbed. What is it? The hooded man, panting, relayed. The Tower Master is now heading towards the Imperial Palace. Absolutely no one was prepared for such an abrupt visit. Then I guess they'll be done with their discussions for the day. Let Mr. Evantos erase the traces of his presence and leave immediately. The Draconian did not resist, for the time had not yet come. Arian walked faster and faster towards the doors of the building. And this time he would have many questions. Well, the next part is going to be insanely awesome. If you want to see part 8, write the secret word in the comments. Poison. That way I'll know you've seen it to the end. Also, let's get 500 likes on this part so the new part comes out as soon as possible. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you later and bye-bye.